Hello and welcome. My name is Fake Fairy Tale and this is the 6th video in the Let's Build a Home series. At the end of last video I mentioned that I would work through a bit of the minor details in shading and so I did. I brightened up this section over here by making a few diagonal, maybe I can slightly diagonal shadows. I shortened the shadow that's alongside the wall on the south. I put some shadow paths over the eggs and around the edges of a few objects as well. Also the top side of the fireplace. Having done that, I would like to leave the shadow section for these two rooms as is right now. And I would like to continue onwards to the stairs. And I actually have a written tutorial about how to do this. I'll link it in the description of this video in case you're interested. Nevertheless, I think it's good to walk through this step by step and show you how I make an interesting looking stairs. And I'm also toying around with the idea of translating the written tutorial into a video tutorial. Also show you the types of stairs that you can implement, like corner stairs, half round or circle stairs, and show you guys how I go about making those and shadowing them. So if that's something you're interested in, please feel free to shout out in the comments and I'll be sure to take it into project. So the first thing we want to do is we want to add a few pieces, a few assets to the staircase. And for that, I would like to go to wood. I will go to the ashen wood stairs, and we have these. I'll put one in size and we'll snap the grid. Go. Like these little pillars, they will be holding up the railing that's in between the two pillars, and we're also going to use them to cast a few shadows on the staircase itself. Before we do that, however, I want to make sure that the staircase pops. And for that, we first want to add this Wibbly-wobbly step line. And the name is really cool and funny. And what it does basically is it's a Wibbly-wobbly line. See it. And it's basically the same line that is already on the edges of the regular steps in the staircase. However, the last step of a staircase always lacks this shadow. I don't really know why. So we want to place it manually and make sure that you have a very distinct first step as well. So that's exactly what we're going to do. And take again now. Fade. So I think I'm going to have to make him a bit thinner. 0.9. Go, and we'll do the same thing up here. Alright, and now I want to add in the first few shadow trails. This is good. Put it at 0.25. Fade on both sides. And the first thing we'll do is we'll trail a shadow along the side of the staircase, and we can move it all the way up from wall to wall. That's fine. So there we go. There. I will do the same thing at the vertical line. Go. And we also want to do the same thing at the opposite side of the staircase. And this is again to pull it off from the railings and the walls and make sure that the emphasis is on the center of the stairs where everybody walks. and you'll see it becomes already quite more distinct from the other wood that's inside this room. And additionally, I would like to go to 0.1 or 0.15. Let me check. And 15. And I want to bit lighter. There we go. Make the shadows between the steps a bit darker. That's just my personal preference. You can leave it as is if that's what you like, and if you think it looks good. I always just like to make the shadows a little bit darker to really bring out the steps in the staircase. There we go. Now, another thing I would like to do is make sure that the bottom of the staircase is always a bit darker than the top. And for that, we'll use 25 shadow path large. And this takes a bit of playing around with, because you don't want to be the difference between the floors and the staircase itself to be too distinct. If it's very dark, like if I take the 50, this starts to look weird. Now it seems as if this step is actually lower or sunken into the ground compared to the floor, and we don't want that. But we do want to create the illusion that this step is lower than this step. Same thing over here. And you do that by just taking a very opaque pathway. We'll make it a bit longer, depending on the stairs and how long the stairs is, of course. And you just draw it in the opposite direction as you did with the other one, the other path that bring out the steps in the staircase, and just let it cast a shadow over the entirety of the set of stairs. And to make sure that the transition is smooth, I actually want to darken out this section of the floor here a bit. And now we already have quite an interesting staircase to work with. And it's that easy. You just put in a few shadow paths and it looks so much better already. It doesn't take much time at all. We'll trail a small path around. Bigger. And you have an interesting looking staircase already. So we'll add in a few shadows here and there. Very small ones and thin ones because the light is very bright on this side. To 1, and we'll trail alongside the edges of the grate and chest over here. And we'll put it even thinner, move it a bit up, and make sure that it casts a shadow on top of the objects that are underneath the stairs. So I like this. Okay, now what I always do with all kinds of stairs or fences is I draw a little bit of a shadow path along the edge of the pillar where it meets the railing itself. And it doesn't always make a lot of sense considering where the light comes from, but it does look very natural. And it focuses the attention a bit more to the center of the railing. So I would like to darken out the pillars as well. And for that, we'll take a shadow object, circle, and these one can be colored. We'll make it black, making it even a bit more opaque than it is. We'll turn it down. It's plenty. Just that it's not full on very bright. You don't have to turn it down by much. You see it's barely noticeable actually. Walls. That back. And that already looks good. So now I want to add in another thing that is really cool and it provides a really cool effect, which is the shadow of the railing and the bars that go down that, you know, support the railing. And this will really make a very simple and dull room have something unique and interesting. And since I learned it, I actually apply it to practically all staircases that I make, and it just looks really cool. So I'll show you how I go about it. So first of all, I'm going to take, I think right now I want to have the shadow path 50. I might come back to that and replace them with shadow path 25, but we'll just get started and see how it looks. And we'll work away from there. In order to decide at what angle and at what side the shadow is cast, you always have to look to the light source. So right now we have a light source from two sides, which means that probably the shadows cast on this side would be quite opaque and light. However, because this light source is brighter, it will still cast some shadows on this side. So we're going to add at a 0.3 a pathway. And what you can do is actually draw it from the light source and make sure that it crosses over the object. And this way you'll see at what angle the light hits an object and what kind of shadow it will cast on the other side. So after that, you take the edit tool and you move the shadow to underneath the object, and we'll repeat this process for the one over here. Make sure that's about the same length as the one that's all the way down. A bit shorter maybe. There we go. And we'll edit it again. Pull it up there. Now we'll make the shadow path width a bit less because the railing itself is probably not as thick as the pillars are. And we'll draw the railing along this side of the... That's a bit too much of a curve, I think. But might want to have a very minor curve in there. Yeah, that's better. And we'll now change the edges so that they connect with the other shadow. And I always like to use the fade setting on these kind of railings, because if you don't, it creates a very sharp edge that doesn't blend well with the faded edges of the pillar. And I don't like that, so I just play around with these until I see that they do connect properly but don't overlap, so that you have a very a section that is darker over here. And we'll do the same thing up here. And let me think for a moment. The staircase is going up, which means it would cast a shadow a bit further and a bit larger. So we'll move in the first section, keep it on 0.2, about halfway up the stairs. We'll move, we'll increase the width 0.3, and I'll do that for one step, and then we'll increase it to 0.4 for the last bit. And now we have to make sure that these connect properly. So I'll pull that a bit further down, that a bit up. Now you'll see that it starts out thin and it gets wider as we progress, and a bit more opaque as well. And this is about the railing. I don't go very nitty gritty here. It doesn't have to be perfect. It does have to make sense though, so that's important. If we want to make sure that it's like very right, we can. Because now you only have one light source, and it makes a lot of sense for the shadows to be quite dark. And because I think it's a nice feature, I often build my hallways and staircases in a way that invites these kind of shadows, just because it looks cool. For the bars, we'll go all the way down to 0.1 or 0.15. Let me check. And we will just draw paths from the light source like so. And we'll do that entirety of the staircase. I will do the same thing for the staircase up. Those are together. There. And we'll use the edit tool to draw in the lines back to where they should originate from, which are the actual bars that are underneath this little railing over here. And you can just grab it and you see that this line, this white line, which is the original line, you just follow it downwards, position it on the same spot, then originating. And we do this with every single one of them. Last two. There. There. Right. I don't really like this angle, so I always take a moment to look at the paths I just put down and I rework them, make sure that they connect properly all the way up here. It's something I'm not gonna do right now. I'll fix this all up, make sure it looks nice in between videos. And for this room to be all finished, I still want to add in some larger shadows, keep them very opaque, and drill along the walls here, and especially in this little section up here, make it thinner. There. And now we still also have to make sure that the top of the lanterns aren't as bright as they are, because the shadow is cast downwards, upwards, and the light is cast downwards, which means that if anything, the top side of these lanterns should actually be quite dark, or at least not be as lit up. And unfortunately, you can't position a light underneath an object in DungeonDraft, so you'll have to do that manually. And you can do that by just taking a shadow path, make sure that you're above the object level, and we're going to just add in a few shadows over there. And this object is on layer 4 itself, so we'll put shadows on layer 7. And let's see if that's all. Yes, it is. Perfect. Okay, this is where I would like to cut out the video for now. Again, I think we're making some great progress on the interior. In the next video, I'll be discussing some more lighting and highlighting to draw the focus to a few edges and make some of the objects stand out. And when that's finished, I think I would like to progress to the outside and show you guys how I go about making interesting, perhaps add a fence, a few trees, and some interesting nature elements. So if you liked the video, please hit the like, favorite, or subscribe button. It really helps me to get my word out there and grow my channel. And I hope to see you again in the next video.